What's going on, everybody? I am here to do a review for Marvel Studios' Thor: Love and Thunder. This is the fourth installment in the Thor franchise, and I believe the only one so far to have a fourth movie out of the original lineup. We know with Captain America and Iron Man. They got three films. Thor has four, and most likely, possibly, will get a fifth movie. I'm going to be completely honest. I did not go into this movie with the highest of expectations because of, I guess, the bad taste that was left in my mouth, as well as a lot of other people's mouths when it came to Thor Ragnarok that came out in 2017. But before I get into this review, I have to give a shout out to Core 4 VT Reacts, a YouTube channel that allowed me to go and see this film with them. They are some reactors on YouTube. They react to television shows, movies, all different types of things, and they actually allowed me to go and see this movie with them. And most likely this will not be the last film that we will all be seeing together as a group. So shout out to them first and foremost. Now let's get into this review. So Thor: Love and Thunder is basically, I guess you can say, picking up where Avengers Endgame left off. Thor is now with the Guardians of the Galaxy. He has left New Asgard in the hands of Valkyrie. Well, she goes by the name of King Valkyrie, and he's basically off in space. He's been known as this space Viking. He's pretty much wants to be done with the fighting and everything like that. He's pretty much been fighting in every kind of battle you can think of with the original lineup from the first three phases of Marvel, and he feels like he just needs a break, especially with everything they've all gone through with the whole Thanos story, the Infinity Saga, and all of that. So he feels like, he can just take a breather and kind of wind down, but then finds out that there is a threat at hand, and probably one of the biggest threats that he will face, probably even more so than Thanos himself. And that threat being Gorr the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale. Gorr the God Butcher is basically what his name is. He goes around and he destroys gods because something happens to him personally with someone that he cares about, and he feels that when he went to the gods to try to help with the situation, the gods kind of betrayed him, even though he felt he did everything that he could to appease them, and he pretty much just got shunned. He's like the last of his kind, and he's trying to do his best to bring back something personal that he lost, and he feels he got slighted. So now he has gained this weapon. I believe the name of the sword is called the Sword of Necromancy. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And it basically grants him the ability to go around and kill gods. And that's basically his goal, is he's going around killing the gods. I would think I can go and say that Gorr the God Butcher is probably one of the best MCU villains that they've had in a very long time, because he was menacing. His look was very dark, and like how he would creep out of the shadows, and the only thing that you would see is his eyes, because he had these glowing gold eyes, and those would sometimes be the only things that you see in the darkness, because that's how he lived, was in complete shrouded in darkness. And Christian Bale played that character really, really good. But Christian Bale's a good actor anyway. It's just I can't really get with that Batman voice that he was doing in the Dark Knight series. So, the Guardians of the Galaxy was in this movie, but they had a very small part. Like, they were only in like the first 10 minutes of the movie when they had to battle these beings on this planet in order for this other group of people to get control of their land or their kingdom or whatever the case may be. And then they were just gone off. And honestly, I think that was one of the best things they could have did, was to not have the Guardians of the Galaxy be in the whole movie, because then it would have felt like a Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy movie. So pretty much the next time we see the Guardians will most likely be in Volume 3, which is slated to come out next year. So they pretty much did what they did, and now they're gone. And now we also get the reintroduction of Jane Foster. Jane Foster, she is Thor's love interest. She was in the first two Thor movies, Thor and Thor: The Dark World. She did not come back for Thor Ragnarok because she really, at the time, Natalie Portman was saying she really didn't want to do another Thor movie. She didn't want to be a part of the MCU anymore. I don't know what kind of bag Kevin Feige threw at her to make her come back, but he made her come back. And anyone who saw or watched some footage from Comic-Con knows who she was going to play in this movie. Still Jane Foster, but she was going to be Mighty Thor, or Lady Thor, however you want to put it, which is in the comics, where she is wielding Mjolnir. She has been deemed worthy. She can carry Mjolnir again. Now, one thing that would have took it out of the movie for me is if they didn't just discuss how was she able to wield Mjolnir. Why was she able to carry that hammer, especially since one, Hela destroyed it in Thor Ragnarok, so it's shattered in pieces. So how did it come back together? And I'm glad that in this movie they explain it. So basically, Jane's character, she has stage 4 cancer. She's dying, and she's trying to find a way to heal herself or find a way to get better. Now, Jane, she's a scientist, so she knows a lot, but it's like when your body is telling you something, is not enough science in the world that's going to save you from the inevitable. But she starts going through and reading books, and she looks through some stuff about like the like Thor's world, or like the Norse mythology, if I'm getting it correct. And she learns that millionaire, I can never get the name of that hammer right, Thor's hammer. She looks and sees something in the writing of the book that she's reading, that Thor's hammer can grant her to grant her health. So she goes and seeking of it, and basically the pieces of Thor's hammer is in New Asgard. Like they have it like in this little casing. They basically collected all the pieces. She goes there, and then something happens. It comes back together, and boom, and now we have Mighty Thor. She's looking more healthier. She's more agile. Of course, she's moving. She basically has she's moving like Thor, except she's a woman. And I have to give a shout out to Natalie Portman for even getting in the kind of shape that she's gotten in for this role. She got in some top-notch shape. I don't know what kind of trainer she had or what kind of diet plan they had her on, but you can look at her arms. Like if you saw the trailer and saw her arms, like her shoulders were like this. Not to the point where she looked like a man, but they were pretty solid. Like you could tell she was putting some work in the gym for a role that was physically demanding, especially since in the first 2 Thor movies, she really didn't do a lot of physically demanding things like that. But this one, she's fighting, she's throwing the hammer around, she's doing all the other things to the point where she could not look like the frail person that she actually is. Because I remember seeing her in Black Swan. She wasn't going to look like in Black Swan how she looked in this movie. That just wasn't going to fly. It's a far cry between ballerina body and action star body, and she definitely achieved it. So I definitely give her kudos for that. The other character in this, of course, they brought back Valkyrie, played by Tessa Thompson. She is now King Valkyrie of New Asgard. Y'all pretty much already knew that from the end of Avengers Endgame. And New Asgard looks really nice. It's become like a tourist attraction. It's like they got ships, they got cruises, they have tours, they put on a show and everything. I'm telling you, them shows are so cringe. It's like every time they do one of them little plays of what Asgard is like, it's like it just gets cringier and cringier every time. They did it in Thor Ragnarok. They also have some celeb cameos in here. I'm telling you, Marvel, MCU, Disney bag is so big that everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie nowadays, even down to the music. They even had some I don't want to tell you what music they put in there, but let's just say that these 2 particular artists, who are both Black artists, might I add, that we are all familiar with, got a nice little check from MCU Disney for just playing just a little bit of their music in there. And I remember when I was with the group I was with, I said, oh, this person just got a check. Oh, this person just got a check. So I thought it was very interesting. And I think because, the MCU is where it's at now, even if the movie is not good, no one's going to turn down an offer to have some piece of themselves in one of these movies because of how massive it is. So Valkyrie's in there, like I said, she's running New Asgard, and she's realizing that it's a lot to handle. It's not as easy as one may be, and I'm glad they mentioned that, because a lot of people think when it comes to royalty or people running a kingdom, it's just like all glitz and glamour. It's really not. Like it showed in there that she had to have and sit in a lot of meetings with a lot of world leaders discussing all types of things going on in the world. It's not just she's just sitting on her ass all day and she's doing nothing and just looking nice. But she really actually has to do and put in work, which is what a lot of royal families or people who run monarchies or whatever it's called, that they literally have to put in that kind of work. It's not just, oh, look at me, I'm wearing a crown, or look at me, I have this title. It's a lot that goes into it, and I'm glad that they showed that aspect of it. The visuals in this movie was phenomenal, especially when they went to go see Zeus. That whole scenery, I don't know what kind of budget they had for just that scene alone, but that whole scene looked lovely. I love the look of how everything looked there in Zeus's realm, I should say. And Zeus, by the way, was played by Russell Crowe. Now, I will say this. The way they had Zeus being portrayed in this movie, I really didn't care for. Granted, Russell Crowe is a very good actor. He's practically a legend at this point, and he can pretty much play any role. But I really didn't care for how they had Zeus be portrayed. They had Zeus portrayed like he was a straight up asshole. Like it was some things that he was doing in the movie that made me want to reach to the screen and knock his face in, like cave it in. Like I couldn't like believe like some of the stuff that I was seeing when it came to his character. I mean, I guess that's how they wrote it. I mean, after all, Taika Waititi was the director, so you know what you're going to get out of him. So, I did really like the look and the scenery of that. They even had put some stuff in here that was kind of mature that, could have teeter-totted onto almost an R rating type of thing. Like one part where also, and ironically, both of the things I'm talking about, I mentioned happened in that Zeus scene, one of them being Zeus mentioning something about an orgy. I was like, what? Is this hero-gasm from The Boys? That's like literally what I was thinking about. And he said the word orgy like 3 times. The first time he said, I had to make sure I had to perk my ears up to make sure that's what I was hearing. Then the other part was, and this is not really much of a spoiler because they showed it in the trailer if you saw it, where he flicked Thor's attire off and it literally showed his ass. Like literally, they did not blur that out. They probably blurred it out in a TV spot because they couldn't show it. But in the movie, they actually showed his backside, like bare backside, which I don't think that I've ever seen them do in an MCU movie. Because the first time they really leaned in on a mature level was in the Eternals last year when they had the sex scene between Cersei and Icarus, but it was not really like a hardcore sex scene. It just showed a little bit of skin, but not like they did in this one particular scene right here. So I'm like, let me find out the MCU is really pushing the envelope right there with this. But I think what kind of caught me off guard is the fact that it happened in a Thor movie. But then again, not surprising that it did happen in a Thor movie as well. Like I said, all in all, the movie was decent. I'm gonna put it like this: it's a Thor movie. It's not going to be for everybody. We know this. Thor is probably, when it comes to listing the type of MCU characters, Thor is probably damn near at the bottom of everyone's list for the most part, unless you really, really, really do like the Thor character. It's almost one of them things where you're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. For me, I'm kind of in the middle. I will say this. I like this more than I like Ragnarok. I'll say that. I like this movie a little bit more than I like Ragnarok. If I wanted to walk out of Ragnarok, I probably would have. But I said, no, I've already made it this far. Let me just stick it out. But I really didn't care for Ragnarok. And for the most part, a lot of people don't like Ragnarok anyway. But it is what it is. But when it comes to, Thor, Love and Thunder, now I understand what the Love and Thunder part is. Like they kind of explained it at the end of the movie. It's like, oh, now I get it. I wish they kind of would have flowed with that throughout the movie. I think they kind of did, and it kind of meant one thing, but then it kind of meant, another thing. But I would say some of the best parts of this movie for me was definitely any scene that Christian Bale was in as Gorr the God Butcher. Like he really sold his scenes. Like he really made you believe that he wanted to kill these gods to get revenge, or it was a personal thing, or he was very menacing how he talked. He kind of slipped in that Batman voice in there a little bit. I heard it. I was like, hold on, Christian. This is not Batman and it's not DC. We don't need you to be out here trying to sound like that Batman. I don't like that Batman voice. That is annoying. It's crazy because he didn't have it in the Batman Begins movie, but when he came back with The Dark Knight, in Dark Knight Rises, he decided to do that voice and he just kept it. But I don't know why. But he was one of the best parts for me for this movie. And Gorr the God Butcher is like I said, a real, true, menacing villain. Like talk about someone you don't want to meet in a dark alley. And the crazy part about it is, if it's a light alley, he can make it dark if he wanted to. Like I said, just the visuals that they had around him. A lot of people were worried because in the comics, Gorr looks a certain way. He almost looks alien-like. And then Christian Bale didn't want to look alien. I think it's the thing that Christian Bale didn't want all that CGI. He wanted people to know that it was him. And I think they just kind of went with it. And in my opinion, it worked. Because with the darkness and the glowing eyes, that was menacing enough. And then, you know, if they did the CGI thing with how him making him look like an alien, some people would have been complaining about that. So I'm glad that they mixed in the CGI with the practical effect with him. And it was more practical than anything. And I think that's really what he wanted to actually have occur. But all in all, like I said, it was a pretty decent movie. I'm not going to say that I loved it, and I'm not going to say that I hated it. I will say that I tolerated it, but I would say that, in my opinion, it was better than Ragnarok, for sure. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the video on that note. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Is this a movie that y'all want to see, or are you going to pass on it? And, oh, well, one other thing I will say is that this movie kind of stood alone. It almost felt like a filler. You know how like you have the other MCU movies, they kind of like they kind of connect like one behind the other, and how Doctor Strange came out back in May. This movie does not connect to Doctor Strange in any capacity. I'm gonna just put that out there right now. So if you're looking for some kind of remnant of Doctor Strange connection to this movie, it's not. Even in the post-credit scenes, both of them, by the way, there's no connection there. It just kind of like stood on its own. Maybe somewhere down the line they'll connect it all the way back in, but don't go into this thinking that because Doctor Strange came out in May, that is connected to this movie that just came out in July. It's no connection whatsoever. With that being said, I'm gonna end the review. Y'all let me know what you think.